Hello, this is an Addendum video for a Miltary assault. And basically, I'll be covering here some of the stuff which I haven't covered in my playthrough video from some time back. So first of all, this is the overview map of the levels in the game, and just for reference, so you can have some kind of idea, the start point is in the civilian zone column at the bottom, civilian zone 1, and that is the crash landing site, as it's called in the game. And along the same bottom row in green, you can see the outdoor sectors, these green ones. Just one more thing here. There appear to be two outdoor sector number 3. Outdoor sectors number 3. This is to keep it consistent with the naming in the game. It seems to be erroneous, but it's kept here for reference. The security, the outdoor zone, at least to security zone 1, appears to also bear the name 3, or the 3 in the name, but it's more likely that it was planned to be security sector 6, of course. Sorry, outdoor sector 6, right. Yes, and when it comes to the outdoor sectors, you can basically see that you start at the crash landing site. You can go left or right if you wish to do so, and go one way or the other around the outdoors perimeter of this base 1, or the other way, kind of clockwise or counterclockwise. You can go west to outdoor sector 5, through which potentially leads to engineering sector 1, and then outdoor 4 and 3. So that one which leads to security 1, or you can go from the crash landing site to outdoor 2, then 3, then 4, then the other 3. So that way you'd be visiting more levels, I suppose, but it's not like more is better in this case. They are just different. Actually, the levels in this game, even though there are so many of them, and the paths that you can take, and selecting those various levels, and they are actually relatively balanced, with a few exceptions, I suppose. So this is the outdoor. This also gives you an idea of which towers you then have access to, especially once you've picked one of the branching paths from the crash landing site, west or east, or if after you have left civilian 1, so you'd either be going away. That will allow you access to the engineering tower, the science tower, then possibly also security, or the other way around, storage, military, security. Though the towers, of course, are they are interlinked a bit more, with interwoven corridors and such. So another thing to add here is that there is no detriment to going into civilian zone 1 and exploring that to the degree that you can, because it allows access to the same sectors as the crash landing site with the addition of civilian zone 2. So there is no reason to go to the outdoor sectors 5 or 2 straight from the crash landing site. In other words, do not miss out on civilian zone 1. Then it is entirely up to you what you choose to do. Any of those ways are pretty decent choices. So maybe now a few words about the tower. Okay, maybe before the towers. So you've got the towers. In general, the 6 smaller ones: engineering, civilian, store, military, security, science. You can see the names along the bottom there. And they differ quite a bit. They've got different looks to them, different tile sets. They offer different paths, of course, access to different sectors, not just the sectors from those towers alone, but they allow access to sectors from other towers that are otherwise inaccessible. You can especially see that in the case of security 3. So if you trace the way to that, it is only accessible from corridor 9, before that science 3, before that science 2, and so on, going in reverse. And so the tower zones are in blue and red in this picture, just to differentiate them a bit here, I suppose. Those are those. The orange sectors are corridor zones. So all of those, once you enter them, start with a self-destruct sequence, which you may be or may not be pleased to hear. Of course, that means that once you have entered that area, you should, if this is your first attempt at the given level, explore it a bit. Possibly do your best to reach the exit. Otherwise, explore a bit, practice your run. Or other options, of course, to take a look at the game maps, the Hall of Light. The game map database is recommended here. And yeah, the corridors explode once you've gone through them, or earlier, if you run out of time, of course, with you. So there's no going back after visiting a corridor. Well, that's no going back anyway to any area you have previously been to. And the kind of objective and the end game is the main tower along the top in the grey over there, and you may notice that it is only the levels 1, 2, and 3 are accessible from the other towers, and also, yes, the main tower is inaccessible from outside. It has to be accessed from the top level of one of 3 towers: science, security, military, in that order. For you to access main tower levels 1, 2, and 3. And just as a word of introduction, these levels 1, 2, and 3, they vary quite significantly in difficulty and complexity And actually, just to be frank, the ways they can screw you over, and what I mean by that is level 2 is particularly mean and really worth avoiding. I'll get back to that in a moment, I suppose. But you may also notice in here that past main tower level 3, the game becomes entirely linear. It's main tower 4, 5, 6, and 7. There are 7 main tower levels. Once you have beaten level 7, gotten to the exit of that, you have beaten the game. That's about it, more or less. I'll just get back to what I remember as I go along. Now I shall move on to how I went through the game last time in my playthrough. So this is a path. I marked it in this purple color. So the start is with civilian outdoor sector 1, so crash landing site, or the outdoor sector 1, whichever you prefer, outdoor, just crash landing site. That's civilian 1, outdoor 2, storage 1, 2, 3, corridor 6, civilian 3, corridor 2, engineering 3, 4, then back wrapping around, or rather forward, wrapping around the sides of this map into corridor 10, around the top right of this image. Then science for corridor 13, security for corridor 11, military 4, into main tower 3. So you can also see how I avoided, apart from other levels and areas, I have avoided going into main tower level 1 and 2. Main tower level 1 is not too bad, it's vaguely interesting with, perhaps I'll cover that. What it has, it's a bit of an introductory area. It does fulfill its role as an introductory area for the main tower. There is, that's a small spoiler, but there is no self-destruct sequence from the beginning or once you've finished, once you've accomplished an objective. So you may take your time if you wish. But main tower level 2, moving on from there, that level is possibly the longest, the most difficult, and the most unfair as well of the levels, because it features a self-destruct sequence that is activated on doing something that you are not told that it activates the self-destruct sequence. I don't think the introductory screen, the little briefing screen tells you that. It tells you about the gas canister present on the level but once you approach it, I think, or from a smart card message you get along somewhere in the level, you are told about the gas canister and you are encouraged to blow it up in order to release, I think, hopefully, non-toxic gas. It is non-toxic, thankfully. That makes the aliens visible. Oh yes, I forgot to mention that the aliens at that level are half invisible. They're kind of transparent. So that does work, but once you've blown up the gas canister, the self-destruct sequence starts. And it's quite the long way to get to the exit, and if you haven't cleared the way, in fact, it's extremely difficult, I would say. Really not recommended. Main tower 3 is no slouch either, but it's just a matter of finding one key, sort of practicing getting to that a bit, and then finding your way to the exit. And after that, it is more or less smooth sailing. If you've seen my playthrough, you realize that past main tower 3 there is no self-destruct sequence. Thankfully, just long, difficult levels with tough aliens. But they're not extremely difficult, actually, once you've attained a lot of credits and armor and weaponry. And they're a little bit of a slog, and as I've pointed out in my playthrough. I mean, there are other things to consider, but main tower level 5 you may want to just practice going through as quickly as you can, because aliens respawn there extremely frequently. Basically, so another word about the game is that aliens, if the level is programmed to do so, that the level will spawn aliens as you move around, as you get certain areas in the view of the screen. This is especially visible with the holes in the floor that aliens come out of, like some of the ones on the civilian zone 1 and other levels. But aliens just do not need those holes to spawn just outside of your viewable area of the screen. This just depends on the particular level, and on main tower level 5 how it works, I think, is they respawn quite a few times just outside of your playing area. So once you've cleared an area, gone away, and came back to it, another fresh set of aliens will have respawned in there again. And once you leave that area again and come back to it, that will happen again, and so on, at least a few times. On main tower level 5, I think the aliens stop spawning eventually, though I am not sure. Maybe it is infinite. Thankfully, at least by that point, shooting aliens gives you enough score to acquire extra lives in quite a decent pace. You get extra lives after killing, let's say, a few dozen aliens by the time you get to main tower level 5. Not on the earlier levels. In fact, you may not discover that you get extra lives for killing aliens, attaining score, which is a useful bit of information, though it's hardly of any use before the end game, really. Right. Okay, and let me actually. Maybe I should have mentioned this earlier, but just a quick overview of the towers, what they are like more or less. So each tower has its own kind of character, purpose, tile set. The towers were also discussed briefly in the info base records in Storage Zone 1, which I recall reading aloud in my playthrough. But just quickly, the engineering tower, of course, for engineering purposes, maintenance, generators, other devices. That is its purpose. In gameplay terms, you have plenty of radioactive areas, so once you go there, no matter if you have armor or in fact invincibility, the A icon that you can pick up you will be losing health. The invincibility, the temporary invincibility only protects you against other types of damage, like aliens or one-way doors. Yes, that is more or less it in general terms. So engineering 1, it's a fairly straightforward level of a couple of exits. Level 2 as well, though corridor it exits into is quite of interest, which I'll cover in a minute. Engineering 3, a highly interconnected area, reachable from Science 2, Engineering 2, or Civilian 3, worth visiting. In general, not very easy, mind you, but not the worst either. And Engineering 4, it's quite a unique looking level. It's composed of concentric rings, let's say, or corridors, or so it's a bit of a maze, but it's not a problem to figure out. Just another note about it, as you could see from my playthrough, the time limit once you've accomplished the objective is pretty short. If you want to reach the western exit to Science 4, it's just about enough. It leaves you with 5 to 3 seconds on the clock. So that's in engineering, more or less. The Civilian 1 and 2, pretty easy areas. 3 significantly more difficult, because even though it seems adjacent to 2, it's accessible after quite a bit more of the game, as you can see. And Civilian 4 is quite unforgiving, quite maze-like, it's just avoiding it is recommended. Self-destruct sequence is initiated immediately as you enter. You don't have much time. Aliens are tough. They spawn from holes in the ground constantly. Yeah. And the areas accessible from there aren't really worth visiting either. So I'm kind of thinking in long term, it is also not worth visiting, because it just leads to Storage 4, and then Military 3, which is accessible through other means, and that leads to Security 4, which is way easier to access, let's say, using the route I took in my playthrough, as you can see here. With the Civilian Terry, also at least get doors that are easy to destroy. Perhaps this is to do with the kind of civilian everyday living purposes. It's connected to that. So they perhaps didn't need heavy-duty doors in there, because they would be inconvenient, or for safety purposes, in case a door would need to be destroyed or something. That certainly is the case in the game. In fact, you may, in the fray, some of the doors may be destroyed by accident, which is quite a neat little thing to see as you play the game. It makes the game a little bit more intense and interesting. And another aspect of the Civilian Tower is that people lived in the past tense at the time of when the game takes place, all the residents of that area have been killed by the alien invasion, and it makes for quite the gory display. Certainly something that I recall from my childhood. It was quite the experience to see that first time. So that's civilian areas. One, almost a tutorial kind of area, easy, apart from one room, I suppose, which does reward you for visiting. Civilian 2, quite a large level, with a nice secret, with some messages from developers, and quite a lot of money too. Leads to another area with a decent amount of money as well, and then another. This is that, apart from Civilian 2, that is part of the route from my playthrough. So you could see how much good money I got there. Civilian 3, 4, 4, I've covered 3. A little bit more difficult, not much money there. It's just a stepping stone on the path to something more interesting. Namely engineering 3, 4, and then science 4, security 4, more or less like that. So that's civilian storage or store areas, of course used for storage. The big difference here is that these areas are covered in darkness, and the levels feature a nice little effect in that your character uses a small flashlight to light the surroundings. The aliens have glowing eyes, so you get to see them a little bit. And the levels, apart from the rubble that you can't get through, stored items there, are more or less are planned out more or less on perpendicularly intersecting rooms and corridors. Not so simple though, not as simple as I'm making it out to be. If you look at the what you have to actually get through and the game maps. Storage 1, not so simple anymore. The aliens there are becoming quite tough. The pre-placed aliens are quite weak. But the ones that spawn out of quite the numerous holes in the ground, which you are also told about in a smart card message, they are significantly tougher than the pre-placed ones, and that is immediately observable. So you are advised not to visit the same areas over and over too much, not to wander around. Unless for practice, for your winning, let's say, run, you're advised to visit what you have to visit. Well, perhaps to visit 100% of the level, or most of it, to get some credits, but otherwise make your journey through there quick. Storage 2, the difficulty increases, but there's a nice cache of loot in there, accessible by finding 2 keys, I think, and blowing up. No, sorry, not 2 keys. You don't need special keys, I don't think, but you maybe, sorry, I can't remember, but you have to destroy 4 devices that lock the doors to this cache. So that's that. Storage 3 is slightly similar. Oh yes, and the self-destruct sequence begins after you've blown up the... No, sorry, no. After you have visited the cache, so you should leave the area after that. And the storage 3 level is kind of similar, though the self-destruct sequence starts immediately. Then you are advised to pick up 2 keys and visit the destroy all the terminals in that area, in that level, before you can access the big cache, big vault of credits and a bit of ammo. And also, blowing up the last terminal gives you an additional bit of time that you can spend on the level. The self-destruct sequence gets postponed by a little. So that's really recommended if you go through there. I mean, the credits in the vault are enticing enough, I suppose. That they really allow you to buy some useful items or make the rest of the game significantly more easy. And storage 4, all accessible from Corridor 7, and before that's Civilian 4, so there's not much point visiting that. As mentioned, storage 4, you have to blow up 2 reactors and then leave the level. Not much more to be said there. 2 extra lives there to be picked up. A lot of keys, in fact more than you would probably ever need, but not that much of interest. Next, Military Tower. The Military Tower, arguably the most difficult of these, especially since it can be accessed relatively early on, and it is not a fun experience. It is not easy. Beginning with Military 1, which is not easy at all. It is worth mentioning that the outdoor area preceding it, the outdoor sector 3, in the ECS and AGA version as well, I think, make it so, the level design doesn't allow to activate the last generator that you need, and Military 1, as well as the corridor leading out of it. Oh, there's another way leading out of it. The corridor leading out of it, Corridor 15, is so those 2 areas are inaccessible in those versions. Oh, I should also mention with the storage tower, storage 1, 2, and 3 are inaccessible in the ECS versions. At least the version I had for my A600. Once I went there from the outdoor area or Corridor 1, leading from Civilian 2, the game just crashed, essentially. It just soft-locked. So going back to the Military, yes, the Military 1 features not only the regular aliens, which are very tough and very fast, and plenty of them spawn just outside of your visible area, as well as the holes in the floor. There are also security bots constantly spawning in predefined spots. So again, wandering around is discouraged. In addition to that, the security bots, apart from respawning constantly, they will shoot you from time to time. Really not nice. Apart from that, if that wasn't enough, there are some security lasers, mounted security guns that will activate and shoot at you periodically. But that wasn't bad enough. There's also a self-destruct sequence activated immediately after you enter the area. And you also have to collect 3 keys in sequence. So first you have to get 1 key that allows access to the room with the next key, and so on, until you've acquired the 3rd key, upon which you may access the exit elevator, or you may forego collecting the keys and just go to the outgoing corridor. But as you can see on the map, I'm not sure what it leads to, because once I've accessed the corridor, it's just there's an issue with the starting placement. It basically, upon entering that corridor, I was put outside the playing area or inside a wall, if I remember, at least in one of the versions. Perhaps there was a version where you could go through that corridor, but I can't imagine it leading to anywhere interesting, anywhere that you wouldn't be able to access through easier means. So Military 1, it's just a place recommended to visit if you think if you're looking for, if you're desperate for a challenge, if you think the game is too easy. After that, Military 2, arguably the easiest out of the military areas. And again, the military bots respawn constantly. In that level, you have to, if I remember, you have to locate and destroy security guns, which hurt quite a bit, and essentially you are encouraged to destroy them in a particular sequence if you don't want to run into too much trouble. What I mean is, there's one security gun near the exit elevator. There's just one way out of that level, and you are encouraged to destroy that one as the last one. But of course you have to locate all the other ones and destroy them first. Again, the game map for this level is quite helpful. After that, there's Military 3. It cranks up the difficulty significantly. The security droids are tougher and significantly faster. Plenty of them spawn as you wander around. You also have to first locate a blue key and then access a room with some power generators, and you have to blow those up, then locate the exit. Not nice. Some areas especially have a ton of respawning droids. Military 4, difficult, again with very tough, very fast bots, including invisible ones, if I recall. But the idea is just to reach the exit, but not before destroying a boss, a big alien essentially, which then leads to main tower level 3. Security tower then, security 1, quite easy. also contains a kind of jail cell, a security cell that one of the security members managed to lock himself in. It's quite interesting, a bit of variety. And once you have gotten to him, kind of rescued him, he rewards you with a nice boost to your account, 25,000 credits. Then you may move on to security 2, and that area is completely devoid of any aliens, any enemies, but you are encouraged to just explore a very small level. You are encouraged to just explore a little bit, collect what you can, and only then access the in-text terminal. Well, after kind of figuring out your way to the exit for this level, and then only then you should access the terminal, and the self-destruct sequence will start. All the time will start is what I mean, of course. And Miltary 2 is then accessible after going through corridor 16. So with this you can see how it's better to, this is just one of the examples. Some routes are better than others, so it's better to go through security 1, 2, and corridor 16 than Miltary 2, rather than Miltary 1 than 2. Miltary 1 is quite brutal. You don't really need to visit that. Then security 3 is kind of always detached from security 2. It's only accessible, as mentioned before, from science 3 and corridor 9. Security 3 is a bit of a unique level. Incidentally, also linked to Miltary 2, so it's a bit of a different route though. Security 3 features aliens as well as respawning security bots, though I think in all of the versions the sprites for that level are swapped, so the slow security bots that shoot you visibly have alien sprites and sounds, and the bots the other way around. But the more interesting thing about this level is that it has security cameras around, kind of guarding nice loot, and once you approach one of the cameras, the self-destruct sequence will begin. So you are encouraged to explore the level a bit, not approaching the cameras too close, then destroying the security terminals, getting the red and the blue key if you wish to proceed to security 4, then getting all the goodies near the cameras, because the self-destruct sequence will have begun anyway. Security 4, a surprisingly easy level, slow, not too strong aliens. The only bit of difficulty, arguably, is the boss kind of alien in its separate area in the northwest. No, that's not. You don't necessarily have to go through that. You may just opt to go to corridor 11 and Miltary 4, because the boss alien is only guarding the entrance to the main tower level 2. Though you may want to go into the boss room to get the bit of ammo and health there, and then move out to the corridor Though interestingly, once you've entered the boss room, the view kind of restricts you to, well, not the room itself, but the kind of left to west to east boundaries. So you may not go to, let's say, the beginning of the level in the east for some reason. Or for the reason of locking you into the boss room once the boss battle starts. So you only have, once you've entered the room, you only have a kind of vertical movement, and once you approach the boss, once the boss appears, the kind of the other axis gets locked. You may no longer move south until after you've beaten the boss. But again, not recommended to go into main tower 2. So that's security. Also, the security tower, as well as the storage tower, though for different reasons. The map, the auto map is, well, not auto map, but the map accessible with the M button, M key, is inaccessible in the security tower, apparently for security reasons, because it was a high security area, disallowing auto mappers and storage. Well, it is not specified, but well, I guess they didn't want to make maps for these dark areas for some reason. I'm not sure. Science Tower, overall, quite difficult. Most of the areas have respawning droids, apart from Science 3. Science 1, quite the challenge. There's the addition of aliens and aliens coming out of the holes in the floor. There are also quite a few security lasers. At least there's a terminal where you can do your shopping. You're encouraged to do that. You also have to access it in order to access the elevator that leads to Science 2. Then we may also exit out into Outdoor 3. Science 2, another unique area. It features the so-called convex domes, and these are essentially mines, and what this area looks like is a storage area for them, a big open kind of space, except for with a maze of those domes, those mines, and only some of those are kind of activated. You may shoot them to destroy them, and if you touch one of them, they also explode, hurting you significantly. Even if you destroy them from a distance, you'll be losing health. At least there's a bit of health scattered around the area. The damage from those explosions is mitigated significantly from armor, so that's another good reason to get a good bit of armor as soon as you can. And from there are two interesting paths that you can take to Science 3 using the elevator. Oh yeah, you have to find the red key before you can exit. You can access the area with the exits into Science 3 and Engineering 3. So Science 3, that's a difficult area with many security lasers, tough aliens, and I think you have to destroy all the kind of mutants suspended in tanks before the self-destruct sequence begins. Though I'm not sure if the exit is locked otherwise. Not sure if you can just exit at any point you wish. Can't remember, but you may have to do that before exiting. And the only exit after there is into corridor 9 and then security 3. It's in fact the only way to access security 3. Right, these are the towers, the corridors, well, all of them begin with a time, they're all on a timer, after which the self-destruct sequence commences. You basically have to learn their layouts by heart, at least the ones that you need to visit along the way. Maybe not all of them, that's a bit much. The difficulty here varies. Some of them are pretty straightforward with just additional areas in them, and some of them are really devilish. Devilishly difficult, almost like mazes, even though they're corridors. Another interesting bit of info is the corridor 17. So it bears the same number as the Team 17, the developers, and it features a nice little secret. So you are on a timer, but if you blow up one wall behind which a radioactive area exists, you will be teleported into a separate area with the quote-unquote bodies of the developers that they put themselves in there, and 9 extra lives that you can pick up. So quite interesting, quite useful. Though, to be honest, once you get enough experience to access that consistently and the other following areas, once you start practicing your routes through the game, you perhaps will begin not really requiring those extra lives, at least that many extra lives. You may need some. There are other ones to be picked up as the game goes along. And it's quite interesting. Secret area and a separate area from a corridor that you get teleported into. I think that's the only one of the kind. And when it comes to this, there are other kind of separate areas you get teleported into in levels. You can definitely see one in Civilian 1. There's a secret one in Civilian 2, in other areas. And I just remembered the one in Military 1. So, get this. I explained how difficult that area is, but in 2-player mode, if you have herd players on, so the friendly fire on, you may go in there, and it is implied, it is explicitly said that there's an area you can enter in 2-player mode that you may use as a kind of duel kind of area, just going around the area, shooting each other competitively. Well, it's a gameplay variation, to be sure. To be honest, with how unrewarding the 2-player game mode, especially how you block each other in pathways and how you have to share the credits that you have. Still, it's you can still have pretty decent weapons, and if you have 2 of those, 2 guns, if you cooperate properly, it's actually perhaps feasible. It's just this blocking each other in doorways, and tight corridors, which is really, really bad. really doesn't help and impedes progress. And also, you only have so much ammo. You'll also get some credits to buy ammo with. But another big problem is, let's say, the competence, the knowledge, and the skills between the difference of that between players. So if, let's say, you are just a beginner at the game and you have let's say a more experienced partner, then you'll basically be dragging him down. And this is especially bad if you have one of those self-destruct sequence in progress. Of course, you just be following that player, offering firing support, I suppose. Let's just hope that your partner doesn't pick the wrong pathway, and then you have to turn around, and then you start blocking him, and so on and so forth. That's a few thoughts about the two-player mode. But of course, it could be fun to check that out if you meet someone. If you invite someone over to play on your Amiga, or perhaps it could be possible with Amiga Live. So a small shout out. I should perhaps try that sometime once I figure it out. Okay, so I think that's perhaps enough for now about all the levels in the game and such. I will finish this section now. Now I will show you a few different routes to take through the game, other than the one I took. Actually, I shall show you, just to summarize quickly, the way I went again. So here we are. Start indicated there with crash landing site or outdoor sector 1, civilian 1, outdoor 2, storage 1, 2 and 3, corridor 6, civilian 3, corridor 2, engineering 3, engineering 4, corridor 10, science 4, corridor 13, security 4, corridor 11, military 4, and then into the main tower, level 3, and the upper levels there. So what are the advantages, disadvantages here? Going through it, you go through storage sectors. They're not very easy, many holes in the floor, but storage 2 and 3 have lots of goodies. Engineering 3 has a terminal where you may redeem your credits after getting them in storage areas. And then you go in this way, which wraps around the top levels of towers there to avoid going into main tower 1 or 2. So that was the playthrough in short. Another route that I can recommend is going to be this one. So as always, and as mentioned previously, crash landing site and civilian 1. Then civilian 2, then going through storage 2 and 3 like I have, except you can see the difference in route here. So you don't go through storage 1 in this version, and you don't miss out on much in this way. It's just that storage 1 terminals contain info base entries that inform you about the towers. They're a sort of tutorial, or they give you a good bit of information on these towers. That's why I went through there. So this way you go through Civilian 2, which also has a decent amount of money. 2 and 3, those as well. And then you continue as with as with my playthrough there. It's a relatively similar route. The only difference indicated just before. Another recommendation is this route. Civilian 1, then engineering sectors 1, all this outer area 5, then engineering 1 and 2. Worth noting that you get a free tree laser gun in outdoor 5. You can just pick it up off a dead body of a pilot. So that saves you some money. So by the way, you shouldn't buy the tree laser in Civilian 1 if you decide to go this way. So engineering 1 and 2. Then corridor 17, science 1 to corridor 3, then back to engineering 3, 4, and then along the top of the towers as per usual. You may be wondering why you wouldn't go from engineering 2 to 3 straight away and rather make this detour like that. And one reason is that corridor 17 has a secret where you can pick up 9 extra lives, which is quite nice. It's not the easiest thing to pull off, getting to that secret, then exiting the corridor safely, but it can be done and could make you feel safer later on, or you can do it just for the sake of the number of extra lives. Other than that, actually, the benefit is limited. There's not much else to be gained there. Although, of course, just out of the sheer amount of credits in corridor 17 and 3 and science 1, you're going to end up with a little bit more money, though other resources, that's not sure. And I did not mention science 2 because it has no money to which you have access to, just by the way. It's a fairly one of the easier routes through the facility, relatively easy. Let's check out another route. This one. And here we have a variation or a significant change on the previous route. So you go like before civilian 1 engineer, outdoor 5 engineering 1 to corridor 17 science 1, but from there you can go back outside to outdoor 3 and into security sectors 1, 2, and then your only choice is to go to military 2 through corridor 16, and then you of course have to continue through military 3, corridor 14, security 4, and then as per usual. So this way is longer in certain aspects than the route from my playthrough, in that you go, say, through engineering, science, security, military, but you don't go through engineering 4, science 4, and the corridors along the way. The positive side of this is going through security 1, where you are rewarded 25,000 credits for rescuing a survivor, which you can then immediately redeem at a terminal as well, which has to be mentioned because it is not always the case. But you get a little breather with security 2, and then you have to contend with what's after that, name especially military 3 and 4. Make sure to make your big purchases, well, definitely in security 1. There is also a terminal near the end of military 2, but then the next one is only in main tower level 4, so that limits your abilities. And overall, you do get those extra lives from corridor 17. Maybe they will help you. And this is one of the easier routes as well. Though it does go through those pesky military sectors. But you do get some preparation before that. Another route. So here, from civilian 1, you can go also to engineering sectors. And in fact, this route that I thought of just goes through the entirety of the engineering tower. And then from engineering 4, the usual way. I would say that going from engineering 2 to 3 is a bit of a faff. You have to switch on all the power units, which, by the way, may get destroyed in the fray of combat there, which is very annoying. Some of them you have to access through radioactive zones. You have to make a bit of a loop, like 2 loops through the level. And the difference in difficulty, especially alien, the durability of the aliens you come across, as well as how many holes in the floor there are, is quite significant between 2 and 3. So in this case, make sure to spend your well, actually, yeah, and make sure to check those terminals often. You get access to them in both Engineering 2 and 3, and prepare accordingly. Do not forget to spend some of the credits on at least a little bit of armor. Not the easiest of routes, not the most difficult either. I would say a little bit more difficult than the previous ones, perhaps. Also because you don't really get any of those nice vaults or vaults of or any big sums of money, be it from Civilian 2, Storage 2, 3, or Security 1, to name a few. And mostly these ones, to be honest. So that's that route. And another one to consider for you. Let me just grab it. This one, from Civilian 1 again to Outdoor 5, Engineering 1, 2, then Corridor 17, Science 1, 2, and then Science 3 significantly, which is a change here. It's a branching path, as you can see. You go to access the elevator in Science 2 at the end. Then you can basically go quickly through that level, maybe grabbing a few credits along the way. And you use the corridor 9, and then you end up in Security 3. A bit of a peculiar area, unusually for security zones. Your map, your auto mapper, is available for some inexplicable reason, and from there you can head on to Security 4 up above, and then continue as usual. Just as a side note here, there's another possibility of there's another branching path from Security 3 going to Military 2 and 3. But as mentioned before, these areas are not easy, and going this way you don't really get a whole lot of money. A whole lot of good preparation is what that translates to, and that could render going such a way quite difficult, and I would not recommend it. And as you can see, you also end up going to Security 4 this way. The only positive side of this, of going that way, that I can see, is that you can access a functional terminal near the end of Military 2. Or, it takes a bit to get to that terminal anyway. And I say functional because there's plenty of terminals on Security 3, but those are dummy terminals. They may not be accessed to the extent that you are used to, and you may not purchase anything from them. Okay, and this is just the route that I was the possibility that I was considering, which has this one advantage. But this going this way makes it significantly longer as well as significantly more difficult. Do bear that in mind. Mind you, going through the previous route, you're still going through Military 4 as per usual. Hopefully you're prepared. You'll be prepared before then, but going this way or the previous way, you may not exactly have enough money to do so. And last route I want to talk about in here is this one. Crash landing site, civilian 1, civilian 2. Then use the corridor there, go through storage. Then use the corridor there, which goes east into military 2. So not the easiest transitions, not the easiest transition there either. But you do get that terminal in military 2. And this is, as you can see, relatively short. But not easy at all. Not easy at all. If you haven't had a lot of practice, especially this military 2 and 3, and then military 4, suffice to say, are going to be a challenge. Thankfully, going this way, you get this nice amount of credits from civilian 2, which you may then use up in there or later on in military 2. Okay, and these are some of the considerations, some of the routes here. These aren't all the routes. There are others for you to discover. I mean, the developers were boasting about something like 170 something different routes that you can take through the game, but not all of them are really beneficial to your progress, and not all of them are easy or make much sense. Avoiding certain areas where you can pick up something nice, or going through really difficult ones almost unnecessarily. Though in game terms, it's a bit of variety still. For a curious player, it's a bit more exploration. And it's fun to find out about those places, practice them, and increase your skills and learn. Yes, but that is more or less it when it comes to me talking about the routes in here.